Now, in the fishing world, you may have heard the phrase the big three. And the big three refers to the three biggest fishing companies in the world: Shimano, Daiwa, and Abu Garcia. Now right here you have the top of the line flagship reels from Shimano in the Antares DC, and then from Daiwa you have the Steez SVTW. But thanks to a very generous ride or die Abu Garcia for life subscriber, I have my hands on this, the top of the line reel from Abu Garcia, the Revo MGXTREME2. Now you got to give it up to these Abu Garcia guys like Billy, who sent me this reel, and Sam, who sent me the Revo Premier, because they're sending me these reels new in box, and they're like, tested against whoever and whatever, we don't care the results, we just want to see these reels up against other reels. And in fact, Billy, who sent me this reel, was gonna send me 3 reels: the Abu Garcia Revo D's, 6, and then the Revo SLC, which are 2 pretty expensive reels, but unfortunately, due to a short time frame I'd have with the reels, I told him just to send me this one because this reel is sold worldwide, while the other 2 are JDM only. So let's crack open this box. In fact, I'm gonna move these other 2 reels out of the way. As usual, Abu Garcia's come packed very nicely. Let's take a look at that thing. I'm gonna take this out. It comes with oil, as you can see. And wow, as you can see, this reel is very striking. It's got this deep, glossy, shiny paint job. It's got a bunch of red accents. Then it's got these cork knobs. Now the thing about the Revo MG Extreme is that this is supposed to be the lightest reel in the world, and at $500 it's not cheap. Now this is the 2nd generation model, and the 1st generation model, I believe, was supposed to be the first reel in the world that came in under 5 ounces. But I'm gonna let you guys soak in all the details of this reel, because there's quite a few. And I'm going to do my customary inspection, and we'll be right back. Okay, so the inspection and note taking are done, and I realized that when it comes to the MG Extreme, the approach that Abu Garcia took for their flagship is kind of like a combination of the Steez and the Antares. Now, it took a page out of Daiwa's flagship playbook by making the Extreme very lightweight and very racy looking. In fact, it's so racy looking that it makes the Steez look very pedestrian in comparison. And that's saying something, because I always thought of the Steez as being a very racy looking reel. But you got this deep shiny black paint, all these red and silver accents, offset by these tan colored cork knobs. The Revo Extreme definitely is the most eye-catching reel on the table right now. But it also took a page from Shimano's playbook, and that's because they put every little bit of technology and features into the MG Extreme, just like Shimano did with their Antares. That's something that Daiwa definitely did not do for the Steez. Now let's make a quick size comparison just to show you how tiny this MG Extreme is. Now the Steez is kind of like a medium-sized reel, but it looks pretty big compared to the MG Extreme. Now compared to the Antares, this is pretty hilarious. Look at the massive size difference between the two. The Antares looks like it's twice as big as the MG Extreme, and it's definitely much taller as well. But like I said, both of these reels are packing the latest and greatest technology that both companies had at the time. Alright, so let's get into the specs. Okay guys, so there are just so many little details on this reel that I have to cover that first before we get into the meat and potatoes. Now just take a look at all the features and little design accents going on. Now first of all, it has a carbon fiber handle, but also a carbon fiber drag star. And this is probably the same drag star that's on my Revo LTX BF8, which is pretty much the bait finesse version of this reel. But yeah, carbon fiber drag star is usually a very expensive option, if there's even an option, because there's not too many out there. You can see the knob end caps have the silver dots as well as silver trim beveling. The spool tension, of course, is this bright red. It's got a bunch of accents going on. Of course, it clicks. You can see the drag stars attached to this metal, I guess, base. It's got some silver accents going on. 8:1 gear ratio. By the way, that's the only gear ratio this comes in. You can see the gearbox trim here. Looks a lot better than the one on my Revo LTX BF8, even though it's the same. But also check this out. So here's the brake dial adjuster. Now if you look in between, that's actually carbon. And if you didn't look hard enough, you probably missed that. But then also if you look in between these, I guess these slots on this trim piece here, that's also carbon inlay as well. So like I said, there's a lot of detailing going on this top of the line Abu Garcia. Alright, let's get into the important stuff. Now the Revo Extreme has such a long list of features that I'm not going to go down each and every one of them. I'm just going to list them on the screen for you. But I'm going to talk about the ones that stood out to me. Now, of course, this is supposed to be the lightest reel in the world, so that means it's going to have a magnesium frame with carbon C6 side plates. As you can see earlier in the video, I showed you all the places that this reel has carbon. Of course, that is to lose weight. Now, the reel also comes with an extra set of knobs in case you don't like these cork knobs, and these are your more traditional flat style EVA knobs from Abu Garcia, and they actually come with extra little knob end caps as well. So that's a nice touch that you get for your money. Now the most important features that stood out to me was the fact that they gave the MGXTREME ceramic spool bearings. So the total bearing count is the typical 11 that you get from a Doyo reel, but 8 of them are supposed to be the high performance corrosion resistant, while 2 of them, which are the spool bearings, are supposed to be ceramic. And this was available in the first MGXTREME as well. And that was the first time I ever heard of a stock reel coming with ceramic spool bearings. But there's quite a few of them coming out with those kind of spool bearings now. But Abu Garcia, I believe, was the pioneer in that. So I'm spinning the spool. I really don't hear or feel anything different other than the brakes. But we're going to check those bearings out in a moment. And then the last feature that stood out to me was what they call the Sst Concept Spool. And SLC stands for Super Light Concept, and I got this from the Abu Garcia Japan site. So according to Abu Garcia Japan, this spool without its bearing is only supposed to weigh 8 grams, and that is pretty shocking. And I've run into reels lately that have had some really lightweight spools, but this is supposed to be the lightest yet. And of course we're gonna test that out on the scale. But the problem is, the spool is so deep. Now, this reel, with the size and its weight, you may think it was supposed to rival this reel right here, the Shimano Aldebaran, but you can see that the spool on the Aldebaran is so much more shallow. Now, something about these Abu Garcias, they always give them these deep spools. Now, an extra shallow spool would have been nice, but hindsight is 20/20. So that means we gotta break the scale out. Okay, so I got the scale out, and in case you didn't know, Abu Garcia and Shimano have kind of been in competition with each other, trying to make the lightest reel in the world. And I think Abu Garcia claims that they have the lightest reel in the world now. So here's the latest Aldebaran 30. Shit, it's gotta be ounces. Here we go. Latest Aldebaran 30, 4.8 ounces. And it's actually gained weight versus the previous model, but still very, very light. Now the Revo Extreme is supposed to be 4.5 ounces. And damn, it is right at 4.5 ounces. And I'm talking the low end of 4.5 ounces, not the high end. And this is actually even lighter than my Revo LTX BF8, which shares the same frame and side plates. So the Revo MGXTREME2 is currently the lightest reel in the world. Okay, so now it's time to get to the nitty gritty, and we're gonna pull the spool out, weigh the spool, and I wanna take a look at those ceramic bearings. All right, let's take a look at this spool. As you can see, it's very red. Now it is smaller at 32 millimeters, and it is very deep. Now you can also see here the brake system. It's the IVCB4 because it has 4 arms, and you can also see that the side plate came off completely. It's not attached, and that's because these arms are not lockable like the latest brake system on the Premier and the STX. So you really wouldn't need to open up the side plate to make any kind of brake adjustments. You just turn this dial and this ring moves up and down. All right, so as you can see, it sports the short spool shaft, and it is apparently made of aluminum, which is what a lot of companies are doing these days to lighten their spools. But let's take a look at these bearings. Now, they look like standard steel bearings to me. They don't make any kind of noise or vibrate when you rotate them, but I'm gonna take Abu Garcia's word for it and assume these are ceramic. All right, moment of truth. Let's weigh this spool. Now, I've run into some reels over the past few months that had some ridiculously light spools, and let's see what this MGXTREME spool weighs. 9.44 grams. That's ridiculous. 9.43 that time. Now, just to put this into context, the Revo Premier had a 9.2 gram spool once you took the bearing off, and this weight is with the bearing on for the MGXTREME. So just to give you guys a little bit more context, here's the spool of the Daiwa Steez, 11.5 grams versus 9.5 grams. Now keep in mind, when you take the bearing off of the Steez spool, it is 9 grams. And here's the spool of the Aldebaran 30, 12.4. Of course, that has a bearing as well. But according to Abu Garcia, Japan, this spool is supposed to weigh 8 grams without the spool bearing. So I'm going to take the bearing off and see if that's true. Okay, so spool bearing successfully removed, and let's see what this thing weighs. 7.96 grams. Oh, we gotta add the spool pin because that is rotational mass. It goes up just a little bit to 8.05 grams. So this is the lightest, I guess, non-BFS spooled reel in the world. And now I understand why if you go to Instagram and look up the bait finesse hashtag, you'll see a lot of people posting pictures of their MGXTREME because this reel has such a lightweight spool. So yeah, I'm definitely going to test the bait finesse capabilities of this thing against some other reels as well. Now, before I put the bearing back on the spool, I got my bearing checker tool, and we're gonna check the spin time of this allegedly ceramic bearing. As you can see, it looks just like a standard stainless steel, and let's see how it spins. And unfortunately, it does not spin, not even barely a second. So I'm pretty sure that to get the most out of these bearings, you probably have to clean them. But here's a hybrid ceramic from Spool Speed. Now it does have the shields on, but they don't spin that long with the shields on, but they definitely spin better than the MGXTREME spool bearing. Now if you took the shields off, this thing would spin forever. Alright, so let me put this reel back together and go over my final thoughts. Okay, so to wrap up this initial video on the Revo MGXTREME, you can see that for the money, the Revo MGXTREME does give you quite a lot. You got the extra knobs, carbon fiber, everything. It is the lightest reel in the world, and apparently it has the lightest non-BFS spool in the world. So on paper, this thing should be a deadly performer, but of course, on paper versus the real world can often be two different things. So in the short time that I have this reel, this thing is going to go to battle up against Shimano and Daiwa's best. So be out on the lookout for those videos. Alright guys, thanks a lot.